Okay, in this lecture we're going to focus on Islamic law, commonly known as Sharia law. This is the law that is a form of the law prevalent throughout the Islamic world. Islamic law is really one of the fastest growing legal systems and has been for some time. As I mentioned before, 1 in 4 people, a quarter of the world's population, is Muslim. Islamic law is also known as Sharia law. Sharia is an Arabic word meaning path. And as we'll talk about Islamic law, understand that Islamic law is going to serve the function of a path. It is a path to God. It is a path to righteousness. So when we talk about Islamic law, it is designed to guide people along a path. And so that's why it has this appellation of Sharia law. Now, Sharia law, Islamic law, and I'll use the two words interchangeably, is the principal source of law in many Muslim countries. It is either the majority of the law or it is used in some aspects of the law. And obviously in the world today, understanding Islamic law is important to how we approach the world. We can't approach the world without some understanding of Islamic law. And I've noticed a lot, you can find it online, you can see it on the news, you can read it on the web, that people have some very odd concepts about what is Islamic law, what does it say. And so one of the things I want to do in this section of the course is to talk to you about what it is and how it works. And I'm not advocating for it, I'm not saying that it's wrong. I just want you to know what it is and how it works. Now, what is Islamic law and why is it important? Well, Islamic law is unique in that it unites cultures across the world, wherein countries may exist very geographically separate. It may be Indonesia, or it may be Saudi Arabia, or it may be aspects of other countries, but it is a law that is the same around the world. So Islamic law is the same in Albania as it is in Turkey, as it is in Indonesia. So Asia, Europe, Asia, Europe, and Africa, we see Islamic law present. It unites cultures across the world. Now, Islamic law, as I noted, is a religious system of law. It is based on religious features. Islamic law derives from a deity and from interpretations of what the deity has said or has authorized. Now, Islamic law, though, is broader than simply religious law because it aims to cover all areas of life and not just the spiritual. In Islamic culture, life has to involve God, that the idea of we are going to separate God from how people live their lives is alien to many Islamic cultures. So Islamic law is much broader than the civil law or the common law, or broader even than other religious legal systems. Because many would claim that the law cannot exist outside of religion. You can't have a law that is different from what God has said is the law. And therefore, the law has to cover both religious and secular matters, even though it is a religious form of the law. Now, scholars divide legal systems of Muslim countries into 3 categories. And this is one of the things I want to point out in this lecture, is that Sharia law differs across countries. I said it united cultures around the world. However, every country applies it in a different way. Now, classical Sharia systems, we're going to talk about those. Those are those that primarily use Sharia law as the body of law that governs the country, both religious matters and secular matters. There are secular systems in which the authority of the Quran and Islam is recognized as a source of the law, but in terms of how the law actually operates, it operates in a very secular manner. Obviously, a country like Turkey. And then finally, there are mixed systems. There are systems that use primarily secular systems to address matters of business, for instance, while using Sharia law to govern family matters. Now, Sharia law is found in countries that have very different legal histories. And Sharia law deals with a lot of topics, those addressed by secular law as well as religious law, including things like crime and politics and economics. Sharia law extends to personal matters as well, things having to do with sexual intercourse or hygiene or diet or prayer, etiquette, fasting. Most Muslim majority countries incorporate Sharia at some level in their legal framework. Many would call it the highest law or the source of the law of the land in their constitution. Most Muslim majority countries will use Sharia for personal law, marriage, divorce, child support, any of those matters. And so we will see elements of Sharia generally used for personal law, but it could also be part of a criminal legal system as well. There are some countries that use Sharia law in its entirety, and these are the more fundamentalist countries that I have on the screen. Now, an important thing to know about Sharia law is more than simply law in the prescriptive sense, meaning it's more than law that says do this or don't do that. When we talk about Sharia law, we have to recognize that Sharia, the path, indicates that it is not simply a body of law, but it's also a methodology. It's a methodology in which a jurist, a judge, can engage religious text to ascertain divine will, to decide what would God think of this particular dispute. So if two individuals come to a court and they are having a legal dispute, the answer should be provided by God. Now, God may not have covered the exact facts of this dispute. So what we do is we use a methodology in which the judge will address religious text in order to figure out what would God think about this particular dispute if he were to speak on this dispute. So the outcome of this process of ascertaining divine will is called fiqh. And fiqh is positive law, meaning once we have gone through this process, this Sharia process, then we have positive law out of that process. And fiqh is the moral and legal anchor of a Muslim's existence.